Are you mentoring anyone right now in your life? Parents would usually say yes. That's a default thing with kids, it's the idea. And you should absolutely be raising your kids with a mentoring kind of mindset, but there's more to mentoring than just raising kids. But what about people who don't have their own kids? Let's be real. You need to be mentoring young people too, because at the end of the day, there are a lot of young people who don't have parents in their lives, who don't have healthy, positive influences in their lives. There's also kids whose parents are just, dropping the ball, and the kids that don't have them at all. On today's show, I have author, speaker, and mentor Sam Thiara on the show to talk about mentorship and more. Guys, if you've missed his TEDx talks, you should check them out. But after this show, let's get into it for now. Be better tomorrow because of what you do today. My name is Brent, and welcome to the Fallible Man Podcast, your home for all things man, husband, and father. We provide content to help men become the men they want to be, and today on the show, I am just grateful to have Sam Thiara join us from Vancouver, BC. Sam, welcome to the Fallible Man Podcast.
Oh, no, I appreciate it, Brent. I look forward to being able to share with your audience, and the fact that we're in the same time zone, that's a good thing.
That is actually very nice. My last interview, he was in Australia, and so scheduling that was very exciting.
Nice.
So, Sam, you're a lecturer at the business school at Simon Fraser University. I actually do know what that is. I watched them play the Air Force Academy down here at our hockey rink. They were working on moving to Division IV hockey, and so I got to see their team take on the Air Force Academy down here. That is in or around Vancouver.
Yep. We have 5 campuses right in the heart of downtown Vancouver.
Wow, okay.
And equally, our main campus sits in Burnaby, which is a suburb, and Surrey, which is a suburb of Vancouver.
Okay. I know both places, but I'm not intimately familiar with it enough to know exactly how that laid out.
Yeah.
It's right in the heart of downtown then.
So there's, a number of different campuses, but the main campus is located up on the mountain in Burnaby, which is maybe 25 minutes from downtown Vancouver.
Okay. You have a lovely area. Vancouver is beautiful. You guys film a lot of movies up there, in fact.
Oh, we do. And where I live, I'm 3 blocks away from the wilderness in North Vancouver where the mountains are.
Okay.
About 7 minutes. If you drive down, you get to the waterfront. And if I need to go right into the heart of downtown, I just hop on the passenger ferry. In 12 minutes, I'm in the heart of downtown. And Vancouver is similar to Washington State, Seattle, with regards to temperature and things. So generally, the snow stays up on the mountains, and then you could actually ski in the morning and golf in the afternoon.
Yeah, I'm not a city person. I don't like being in town. But for a city, Vancouver is really nice. I do like Vancouver. You guys have quite a thing going up there. So you lecture there, but you also have a consulting and coaching business, from what I understand. And you've been on the TEDx stage twice now, which is quite an accomplishment. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I could list off all the many accolades, which picking a few to introduce you was very difficult for me, but I'm actually a horrible podcast host because I like to have my guests introduce themselves. So this is what I'd like you to do. It's not because I didn't do research on it, it's because I can read your accolades, and that's not going to mean anything to my audience because that doesn't tell them who you are. And that's what I'd like you to do right now, is just introduce yourself and tell them who Sam Thiara is and why you're on the show today.
No, and to your point, and you actually spot on that. Part of what I always talk about is it's very easy to share what somebody does. I want to know who people are. And if I had to describe myself to you, I would say that there are 5 things that guide and direct me in life: servant leadership, story sharing, activator igniter, champion enabler, and community do-gooder. As a result of those 5 things, it's enabled me to help individuals, teams, organizations, educational institutions, and nonprofits to really maximize. But those 5 things have actually also enabled me to be a speaker and a storyteller, a mentor and a coach, a writer, author, blogger, an educator, an entrepreneur, a problem solver, and a community activator. I think that, to your point, when we talk about who we are, it really has provided me the clarity that's enabled me to then see my journey, where it's taken me to where I am today. But then how can I support other people in their journey as well?
All right. That is actually the most prepared answer I've ever had for that. Most people, I'm like, hey, I can read off all your stuff, but who are you? They're like, who am I? That's a deep question. Yeah, but that one I was hoping you already knew. I didn't have to think of it too much. I like that. Thank you. I'm overwhelmed. Since I started podcasting, I'm very blessed to have talked to some incredible people. And in that, I read a lot of success stories and accolades and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, but that doesn't really tell people who this is. And I also am a hiring manager. And so I look at a lot of resumes and say, okay, sure, I'll interview you. But that's where I want to actually, like, yeah, I read your resume. Yeah. Now let's find out who you actually are. Are you going to fit with my team? This matters to me. So thank you for that answer. So what is something absurd or strange that you love to do? For example, I eat sandwiches and burgers in the round. Like, it's almost a compulsion. I don't know why I do it, but I don't just eat a burger. Like, I eat all the way around and work my way towards the middle like a cinnamon roll. What is something absurd or strange that you love to do?
Actually, for 11 years, I played in an Irish military pipe band, and I'm not Irish. But I was a drummer, and actually even being a drummer in the pipe band, it was never about necessarily the drumming. As a tenor drummer, we're all about the flair, and I guess that's very respective and reflective of my life, is when you see a pipe band go by and you see the twirling of the sticks. That's what I got to do. But here's the thing, I never had any experience in drumming prior to joining the pipe band. And for 11 years, there was actually a really good conversation I had with my pipe major, who was my best friend. He said, the drumming we can teach you, commitment I can't teach you. Now, if you're really wanting to be a part of this, we'll work with you and we'll get you kitted out and everything in that regard. But the commitment is really what I'm looking for. And he's my best friend. And literally, we've traveled to certain places together just to be in his presence. I was like, perfect. I'm committed to this and I'll be a part of this. But yeah, no, people think it's strange that somebody who's of an Indian descent plays in a military pipe band. That was a number of years ago now. And there were times where I'd be, like I said, wearing the kilt and the uniform and all of the regalia that goes with a military outfit and my corporal stripes. And people would look at me going, you're not Irish. And I said, no, I'm not, but that's okay. I can still hold the beat.
I love it. I love it. I have a great t-shirt I actually sell on my website for St. Paddy's Day. It says, today we're all Irish.
And here's the thing. I used to always joke around and said when we played, and because we're Irish, we used to do 13, 14 performances in 2.5, 3 days. Never had to buy a round. And what was also really interesting is I always used to say, after a few pints, we sound good. After a few more pints, we actually look good too.
After a few more, you don't care if you sound good.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you. That's awesome. So you were recognized by the Canadian government for your work in mentorship. Why is being a mentor so important?
I think we have a responsibility. I think as we go through life, we are given experiences, we are given our challenges and obstacles, and instead of holding on to them, I think there's a need to share. And even in my own journey, there was nobody there to guide and support me. I had to literally fumble around in the dark to try to figure out the journey. And I can go into my journey and how that relates to why I got into mentorship. But I think we've all got these opportunities. And one of my favorite quotes that I live by is, obstacles are the necessary bricks on a road to success. In other words, don't fear the obstacles. Embrace them, but learn from them and incorporate that into your life so that you then have experienced it and become a guide for someone else so that they don't encounter as much difficulty because you've been there and blazed a trail for them. But again, if you're interested in that journey, because it was an interesting journey to get me where I am today, but it was full of obstacles, but again, they were necessary. Yeah, but happy to do it.
Today, I really want to focus on mentorship because finding someone who actually has the experience in that and can convey... I don't think most people understand the concept of mentorship. In fact, that's my next question, so this is going to lead into it nicely. I don't think everybody it's not a term that gets used a lot unless you're in certain trades or in some religious beliefs, but it's not a term that gets used a lot. I don't think a lot of people understand what we're talking about necessarily, much less having somebody who can convey that to their audience. So can you go ahead and define mentorship for clarity and what we're talking about for people? I want to make sure everybody understands this concept of mentorship and what we're talking about here.
Sure. And I know that you want to stay on the topic of mentorship, but what I'll do is I'll talk about coaching and mentorship and how they are different, because again, I think that there's overlap here. Coaching is a very inquiry process. Mentorship is a guiding process. I always say that when I'm mentoring or coaching, they're interchangeable. If somebody is unclear of the pathway and the journey, I go into more of a questioning mode and it becomes coaching. Once we've established a bit of a foundation of who they are, the journey that they need to go on, the things that now they are seeking, we now go into a guiding process, and that becomes mentorship. So think of mentorship as walking along with someone, and there's a trail, but you're showing people this trail because you've walked it yourself. Where does this trail lead to? What might the person gain from this trail? Why are we walking together on this trail? And mentorship is this idea that we all have something to contribute. There's times where I'm talking to a first-year university student, and I asked them, and I said, are you prepared to mentor someone right now? And they're like, of course not. I need a mentor, somebody who's going to guide me. And I said, hey, but if a high school student came to university today, could you guide them and show them how to integrate into the university and how to absorb themselves in and be successful? And they're like, yeah, of course. I said, great, you're ready to mentor. So to capture it, as I mentioned, is you're a guide and a support person for an individual and taking them on a journey. But what you have to be careful about is you are not there to have them become you. And I think that's an important part, because I think sometimes the mentor goes in with thoughts and ideas of what they want the mentee, and the mentee is the person you're guiding, what's important for them. Mentorship involves a lot of active listening and conversation and really trying to understand how you can support a person's journey. I hope that's done justice.
No, I think that's actually a really spectacular definition of mentorship. Like I said, it's just not a term people use very often anymore or understand very clearly. Now, I don't necessarily want to go too deep necessarily that it sidetracks us too far. What got you into mentoring?
What got me into mentoring is this. Actually, it turned out that I had all these experiences. Some of them were successes, some of them were setbacks. And I started telling stories or sharing experiences with people. We get into a conversation, and all of a sudden people are like, oh, that's interesting. Or they were picking up lessons that I was sharing with them. So as a result of that, that's where I found that I needed to then go into this sharing mode and help people in their journey. And I think what was the most important part in all of this was it wasn't telling. I wasn't telling people what to do. What I was doing was listening to them. And in that listening aspect, all of a sudden, I was bringing in thoughts and ideas. Have you thought of this? Or I should connect you to this person. Or here's some resources that are available, and providing them tools for their own personal and professional development. But it was because I found that I started becoming a resource. And working at the university, and it's been there about 17 years now, what happened is I went into the university, and the role that they gave me was student engagement. They said, students are coming to school, but they're going home. Engage them. So I started engaging them, but the more I was engaging them, the more they started showing up at my door, the more they started having questions about the journey ahead. And for me, it was more of being present, listening to them, not imposing. But they were then, and they're still continually approaching me 5 years, 10 years, 15 years out, we're still having conversations and they still see me as a guide or a mentor. So it all became because, of the experiences that I had captured. And I think for your listeners, this is an important part, is we go through life and we have these experiences, but we never capture them. But once you start capturing them and holding on to them, these become ingrained as your story, your journey. And now all of a sudden, you've got more insights that you're able to share with people.
Wow. So built upon your experiences and your relationships,
Yep.
people undervalue the effect they have on people and just
Yep.
the day-to-day relationships. You affect so many people around you without ever even realizing the extent sometimes. So I'm loving the conversation. And guys, if you're getting something out of this, be sure and hit the like button wherever you are, guys. Share this with your friends. We're going to roll to our sponsor, and we'll be right back in a minute.
Today's episode brought to you by thefallibleman.com. That's right, it's us. Head over to www.thefallibleman.com and check out our blog, updated twice a week with new content and links to all of our social media offerings. Tag or search us at The Fallible Man or at Fallible Man on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and other social medias for daily content. While you're there, check out our attitude swag, shirts, cups, stickers, and more. Again, that's www.thefallibleman.com.
Guys, and welcome back. We are having an incredible conversation with speaker, author, teacher, and mentor discussing mentorship with Sam Thiara. Guys, if you missed the first half of the conversation, we're getting to know Sam. Be sure and go back and catch that part. And if you're enjoying the show, consider heading over to our Patreon and becoming a supporter. My Patreons have direct input on the kind of content we create, who we talk to, the topics we cover, and you can support us there and have input on the show. Sam, we're getting into it, and I think we're barely scratching the surface. That is the other headache, is long-form content is not as loved as it should be. But I always feel like I just scratched the surface enough to hopefully get some people to dig a little deeper.
Sure.
Do you believe that that it's part of our role that we should be mentoring people?
Oh, absolutely. The experiences that we've got, you're able to provide someone insights in a direction that they may be going, and you actually never realize the impact that you could potentially have on someone just by being present. If an individual doesn't have a role model or someone that they could look up to, then it may guide them in a pathway or direction that may not be the best suited for them. But by being the role model means being present for that person. And not just once, but being present over a period of time. That presence suddenly becomes active and supportive and guiding. And it helps that person in their journey. And you never know where that journey will lead. Without you being present, where would they be? With you being present, where would they be? I think that's an important spectrum to really appreciate and understand.
In the last year, pick a purchase under $100 or less that has been the most impactful on your life this year.
Okay, it would have to be a book. And the book is Every Conversation Counts by a dear friend of mine, Riaz Megji. And it really spoke to this aspect of the art of conversation and how important that is. From a mentoring standpoint, that conversation is critical.
Okay. Say the book title one more time.
Every Conversation Counts by Riaz Megji, but Every Conversation Counts is the title.
All right. And guys, hey, you know what? We're going to put a link to that in the show notes just because Sam says it was that important of a book for him this year. And so maybe you should check it out. So in YouTube, we have something that people refer to as imposter syndrome. And I'm of the opinion that it exists in other places too, because I've experienced something similar in other portions of my life. And it's when people believe of themselves that they have nothing to offer anyone because they're just, they're not them. Harry Potter said it best, but I can't be a wizard. I'm just Harry. So they struggle to make videos and they struggle to share their experiences or their knowledge because they just think, what do I have to offer? Now, there are a lot of people who struggle with the idea of mentorship in the same way. They're like, wait, who am I supposed... I don't have anything I can teach or guide somebody in. Who am I?
Mm-hmm.
How would you address that as a mentor?
I think that as a mentor, you need to do self-reflection, self-introspection. Because again, I believe that we go down life in autopilot and we go in a certain direction. We don't realize the things that we've accumulated or that we've gained as a result of this. And it could be through lessons learned. It could be through things that have happened that we've learned from, any number of things. So first and foremost, I think the mentor has to have a comfortable and solid base, which means you need to start looking at who you are as an individual. And what's interesting is people, it's easy for them to tell me what they lack or why they may not be the right person. So they can tell me why they lack it. But I always say, no, but tell me about, what are you good at? What resonates with you? What is it that makes you tick, makes you resonate and be profound in what you do? Everybody's good at something. So let's start talking about that conversation, but let's dig deeper. As a mentor, to give you the tools, tell me about you as an individual. And that's where we need to go into details about, when I talk to the person who wants to be a mentor, then it's more, okay, what is it that you have that you are able to share? And you start uncovering it and they're like, and I asked them those questions. Tell me about a time, much like an interview. Tell me about a time when you had to work in a difficult situation and how did you resolve it? Tell me about a time when you had a team member. And they start giving me ideas. I said, perfect, capture this, capture it. Let's start writing these things down. And I love how you're smiling there, going like, yeah, these are the questions you wind up asking.
I hate these questions in interviews.
But no, that's me. And that's why I use servant leadership as one of my key elements, is rolling up the sleeves to support and help others in their journey. But it really is activating their voice. I always say, what's your voice? What is it that makes you who you are? Because once we have established that as the ground force, now you're able to go support and help other people because you've got that capability and capacity. But we need to extract that first, because a lot of people in the journey that I've had and with these individuals, yeah, they're oftentimes they can tell me what they don't have, but let's talk about what you're really good at.
And here is the question of the day. Because, well, question of the show, I haven't quite nailed that title down. Question of the show, question of the day. Have you ever been part of a mentorship program as a mentor or mentee? I'm not sure I spelled that right. And what was your experience with that? Guys, share in the comments if you're watching on YouTube, or send me an email. If you're not watching on YouTube, if you're listening to the podcast, think about it. Send me an email at info@thefallibleman.com. And I would love to hear about your experience. I think mentorship is incredibly important, but this is a community, so be sure and share, guys. We support each other with our experiences. So, moving forward. Sam, can you explain, so coaching is a hot word, right? All you got to do is look online and you can find a bazillion online coaches, which to me is still just a funny idea. Yep. I'm just old enough that seems like it's oddity to me, the idea of online coaching. But can you explain the difference between coaching, since it's such a popular word right now, and mentoring and just giving somebody advice? Would you break that down for us?
Sure. And I agree. Like, I think coaching, that it can be a bit loose. There are programs, but there's not really a certification for coaching. Sorry, there's certification, but there's not like a universal designation like you would get with accounting or finance or a legal piece. Coaching is accessible and available for people that want to offer insights and guide as people learn. But really, mentorship, and I agree with what you're saying there, mentorship is just there. Coaching is very present, very prevalent. Mentorship, on the other hand, I think people, it's almost like they're aware of it, but equally at the same time, not quite clear on what it exactly is. And this is where, when you look at it from a mentorship standpoint, it like I mentioned earlier, coaching and mentorship are somewhat different, because coaching is asking questions if people aren't clear who they are, and mentorship is then guiding them in the direction that they need to go. Now, mentorship can also be organic, or it could be structured. Same with coaching, organic or structured. What I mean by organic or structured is mentorship can have a designated plan of we're going to meet, you know, the third Monday of every month, bring your questions, and then I'll answer your questions about a particular career, a particular area that you'd like to be in. Organic just basically means have a conversation, and then let's decide the next one when you feel like you need it. So it doesn't feel, when we say it's organic, that there is this structure to it. It's a loose structure because you've got this relationship and you've got these conversations that are happening, but it's not structured in the sense of the format. So it varies, and whether you're coaching or mentoring, that'll be up to the pair, I guess you could say, on what works with them with regards to the roles that each person has. Related to that, which I could add at this point about mentorship, is oftentimes when I've either been in a mentorship program or worked to create it, and I do a lot of unofficial mentorship where it's not even in a program, is to some extent mentorship can feel like awkward dating. It's like a high school dance where you've got both parties, mentors and mentees, on separate sides of the room, and they're not sure what they're supposed to do, or how do we engage in this conversation, or what's the outcome. I think if it's a structured program, the organizers need to ensure that there's an orientation piece, that what is it that both parties are wanting to get out of this? It's not unilateral. And equally at the same time, I think the mentor needs to learn about their mentee, and the mentee needs to learn about the mentor. So what's the background? What is it that each person brings? And like I said, I think what's really important is it's also not unilateral. I am not forcing and feeding this individual that's my mentee. Actually, I'm learning as well from this person every single time. And all of these conversations I've had, I've walked away as the mentor going, there was some really interesting stuff we just talked about. And they've helped me along as well. And I think that's one thing we have to get over is don't look at it as mentor up here and mentee down here, and I'm going to just give this person and they're going to take it away. Listen to them, learn from them as well, but engage in that conversation with each other.
My wife and engineers over here spamming questions, so I should make sure I pay attention to hers. So is coaching often the initial or first phase of mentorship, would you say?
That's a good question. And I think it becomes that first phase because we are trying to learn about each other and asking inquiry questions about, tell me about who you are and your experiences. And that's where I think that piece starts up. Now, here's the important thing though. It becomes interchangeable because you may start out with coaching and now you've started maybe rolling into more of the guiding and supporting. But then your mentee might come up to you and says, you know what, this just recently happened, and they may have a situation that's emerged and they just want to have a conversation with you that's unrelated to what the mentorship track was on. You may have to go back into coaching at this point to inquire more, tell me more about this, and supporting them in that regard. Based on that question, yes, coaching may be the initial first phase of mentorship, but don't be afraid to incorporate coaching back in again if your mentee brings something up that you're like, okay, wait, I think that we're going to have to change our conversation up a little bit. When I talk to people, it's about education, it's about career, it's about life, it's about relationships. I've had people that I'm mentoring start talking to me about relationships, and now we're going back to coaching and helping them through the conversations of what may have happened in that relationship. But again, I may be a bit different in that regard because I'm very wide spectrum, but in a more of a professional setting, you may only be comfortable in that career, maybe life aspect. But to answer that question, coaching may start, but don't be afraid to go back and forth.
What is next for you, sir? I know school year is getting closer, right? Starts back in August, but what is next for you? I see you've written a book.
Yep.
You're on lecture circuit. What is next?
Yeah, there's a number of things that are next for me. At Simon Fraser University, we're a trimester system, so I'm in teaching mode right now.
Oh.
And
okay.
coming up to final exam season, actually. But they've said in September, we're actually, from virtual, we're going back into the classroom. So
Yay.
getting used to that. That teaching bit is something I really greatly appreciate because it's like I'm mentoring a room full of individuals at one time. But equally at the same time, it's about getting that book out. The book I wrote is Lost and Found, Seeking the Past and Finding Myself, about my journey to find my ancestral roots, but in the process, finding my own identity as well. But equally at the same time, more speaking. But one thing that I highly encourage people to do is to find an outlet. Whether it's through the pandemic that you are encountering challenges, but an outlet is so critical because what I found is, for me, woodworking has become my outlet. I could be out in my garage sanding, working on a project for 2-3 hours. But what I've done is I've released my mind from my daily commitments, and now I'm working on the woodworking piece. But I'm doing all of this, and all of a sudden the thoughts and ideas start coming to me on what I should be doing with regards to my teaching or the writing or any number of things. Highly encourage people to have an outlet because it frees your mind to work on the things that are really important to you because you've now cleared your mind of it and clarity starts to happen.
I found that often when you engage the physical, right? Like with your woodworking, when you get your hands going, it's almost like it takes a weight off your mind to let your mind start really working through things that it needs to work through. Sam, do you do social media at all? Where can people find you? I'm going to have a link. In fact, Sarah, if you can go ahead and put up on the screen if you're watching on the podcast, if you're watching on YouTube, guys, is a link to Sam's website, which will also be in the show notes for the podcast. Sam, this is the best way to find you.
That is, as well as LinkedIn. Those are two methods and ways to find all the stuff that I'm working on. On my website, I've done a lot of blogging with a lot of insights, and you can connect to the couple of TEDx's that I've done and other areas where I am located and what I'm up to.
I was actually reading a couple of your blog posts this morning when I was getting ready for the show. I enjoy those. They're very well written, by the way. I actually watched one of your TEDx talks when you first got in touch with me, and I highly recommend, guys, go, if you're on YouTube watching this anyway, you can find his TEDx talks on YouTube, and I'll put links for those also in the description of the YouTube video, and you should check those out. I don't remember which one I was listening to. I turned it on in the background while I was doing something else.
There's on storytelling, and the other one is about activating the voice within to be louder than the noise around.
I think it was that. I think that's the one I was listening to, but it was good. I was enjoying it. And then work happened, and I had to go back to fixing computers. I find something good to listen to at work, and all of a sudden I actually have work to do. It's amazing. I get enough time to actually enjoy something, and that's when stuff... It's like, without fail, if I heat up my lunch, that's when we get a delivery or something at work. Like Murphy's Law or something. Do you do any other social media? Are you a TikTok guy?
I'm Instagram as well as Twitter, so I'm quite active on those places as well.
Okay. Yeah. Sam, thank you so much for being on the show today. Guys, you are likely influencing people every day. Someone's eyes are always watching you. Whether you have children, whether it's your coworkers, consider purposefully mentoring someone. It may be a child you have. It may be someone in desperate need of a positive male influence in their life. You can do it through a number of ways, guys. There's church programs. There's just volunteering at local schools. I know our school is always hard-pressed to find positive male role models to come in and read to the kids and have those relationships. There are young men out there who need your influence and support. So please consider it, guys. Check out Sam's website at http:// sorry, that's tech speak for / sam-thiara.com, where you can find his blog and a lot more, guys. You need to check out that site. He has a ton of information. I'm seriously jealous. I'm rebuilding my website right now.
And maybe what I'll do in the next couple of days as well is actually revitalize and put up a post on LinkedIn and my website about mentorship and some of the key things and elements for that may go along with this podcast.
That would be incredible. Guys, Be better tomorrow because of what you do today, and we'll see you next time.
This has been the Fallible Man Podcast, your home for everything man, husband, and father. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a show. Head over to www.thefallibleman.com for more content and get your own Fallible Man gear.